Welcome to Envision Radio from the United Way of Greater Charlottesville and City of Promise and News Radio 98.9, 1070 AM, WINA, and brought to you by the Jefferson School Foundation with Marky and Price here in the studio in downtown Charlottesville. Today we are thrilled to be joined by Toyosi Ogunseye, an award-winning journalist, international leader, and 2014 Mandela Washington Fellowship alumna of the Presidential Precinct. Toyosi previously served as senior news editor for the News and commissioning at the BBC and made history as the first female editor in the 50-year history of the Punch newspaper, one of Nigeria's most widely read publications. She now serves as the president and CEO of the Presidential Precinct. But most excitingly for me, our next guest on this episode of Envision Radio.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay, so
I usually try to cut it to one sentence when I introduce her. Every time I read each sentence in her bio, y'all, I was like, I want to read the whole thing, but I think people would be like, are you sitting there reading somebody's bio on live? I was like,
true.
yeah, it's so good. You need to read every single thing. So I took the whole first half.
So
I was like, oh, well. They going to hear this.
well worth it.
I know.
Well. Good to finally have you in. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm fine.
Good. What I think that largely you might be our first full-blown international guest.
Okay, but I feel very local.
You all see, here's the thing about you, which I've learned about you.
Right.
Is that here's what's funny about her, though. We met when we both started these jobs, and we were kind of on this bizarre adventure together. But I have lived here for probably 25 of my 38 years on and off. Mm-hmm. She had been here for like 3 years, and every time we went somewhere, people were introducing me to her. They're like, oh, yeah, do you know her? And I'm like, I'm from here. I am from here.
Price not as famous as he thought.
How is that possible? Right? They're like, oh, I have this incredible person you need to meet. I was like, what are you talking about?
It's part of the job. I gotta make the rounds.
Crazy.
Not y'all an exec, CEO, president, group chat.
That's exactly right. So what's
you
that?
ain't met every executive producer in this town. You're not doing your job, Price.
That is so fun. So tell folks who don't know you or haven't had the chance to work with you, just give us a little bit of the backstory. Let's figure out where you're from and how you got here, and then we'll talk about what you're up to.
Thank you, Price. My name is Toyosi. From Nigeria originally, moved to Charlottesville about 3 years ago from London. And I was just being a journalist in London. I'd moved from Nigeria to the UK, working for the BBC as a senior commissioning editor. And most of my job and what I did then was commissioning radio programs, negotiating on behalf of the BBC. Before then, I was head of the West African region, expanding markets on the continent, and of course back in my country. And in 2023, I was exhausted completely. I was on the plane almost every week.
Oh, wow.
Troubleshooting, trying to resolve trade disputes that most staff had with the BBC in different countries. And I said to myself, I want to transition from journalism. At that point, I'd been a journalist for about 20 years. And I said, I want to use all the soft skills. I don't want to be on the plane every week. I don't want to be chasing the news every second. There's deadlines. There's journalists in Ukraine looking after everyone. And around that time, I was talking to the chairman of the Presidential Precinct, Jim Murray. And he said, I have a job in Charlottesville. The president CEO role is vacant. Now, I'd come to Charlottesville about 14 years ago for the first time.
It's a full circle moment for people.
At the Presidential Precinct.
Which it was in the fellowship, wasn't it?
Yes.
That's crazy.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and if you told me 13, 14 years ago that I'd come back here to leave, it wasn't just on my cards, but I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, that's crazy. And so, this program there's a connection between that program and what we've done at Montpelier. And so there's like all of these funny threads about, we used to host a version of that program.
Oh, okay.
We used to have this like big, because it was always they used to come to Montpelier right around the 4th of July.
Yes.
And so there was always I guess it was probably 8 years ago, we hit the last cycle of the World Cup. So it was like a whole big thing that was going on.
Yeah.
And so that's, again, when like she was coming back and we were sort of, talking about that, it was really interesting to kind of put all those pieces together. Why did you move from Africa to the UK? What took just the job?
It was the job. In Nigeria, I was the editor of the biggest newspaper. And when you become the editor of the biggest newspaper, you have two pathways forward, because that's the biggest role in the country media-wise.
Okay.
Two things you do afterwards when you stop being editor. You either become the spokesman to the president.
Okay.
That's one.
Okay, jump.
Because nobody else would employ you. You're already the editor of the biggest newspaper. There's nowhere else to go.
Sure.
And so you either become the spokesman to the president or you start your own newspaper. And I didn't want any of this. Right. And one day, I remember so well, I was just parking at the newspaper when I got a call from the chief talent officer of the BBC. And she said to me, is your name Toyosi? I said, yes. She said, okay. We've been looking for the new head of the West African region for the BBC. We've done this interview twice. We haven't found someone, but your name keeps coming up. But then they say to us, they don't think you want to leave the Punch, because the paper I was editing then was the Punch. It was the biggest thing, Why would the editor of the biggest? I know.
Sure.
And then she said, would you want to come to the BBC and help us expand in the West African region? And that was what made me transition. It was simply because I'd hit the zenith of my career in Nigeria, and I knew that in order to grow, I needed to leave the country and go to a bigger media company.
What was it? Yeah, sorry.
Did you think about starting a newspaper at that? Like, once you admitted your zenith, did you think about it for a second?
No.
Really?
Not that. You're saying you hit this. Like, those are your two options. You did not think about.
Capital intensive, and I didn't have the capital.
Okay.
Running a media company is very, very expensive, and I just didn't have the money, and I'd had to go through the process of raising the money. And at that point, I didn't think that was what I wanted to do. Honestly.
So you just came to do it in a different way.
So I just moved. Yeah.
Y'all got something set up? I'll come out.
We always end where we begin, don't we? And did you not flirt with the politics idea? Was that not appealing?
No, I didn't. And that's just because I just told myself, I have thick skin, but I think I need thicker skin to do politics.
Right? Yeah.
And I think I'm still developing that thicker skin. I'm still on the way.
I'm too soft.
Look, that's very self-aware.
My feelings are hurt easily.
Absolutely.
All sounds well and good.
I'm not going to endure people insulting me on Twitter every day.
Don't let me see no smear campaign. I'm going to cry. You got me.
Right. That first news story hits, we just fold up.
No, they said that about me. That's not even true.
What was it like? So, is your family still in Nigeria?
Yes. My dad, mom in Nigeria, my siblings in the UK and in Canada, and I'm the one here.
So did they beat you to the UK, or were you guys all there? Like, did you sort of...
my siblings were in the UK.
Okay, so that transition was a little easier insofar as, right?
Very easy. And of course, most Nigerians, because of our relationship with Britain.
That's right.
And, going to London is very easy for us. Yeah. You could actually go to London in the morning and come back to Lagos in the evening. It's less than 6 hours.
Yeah.
So you could actually have a meeting in London in the afternoon and come home back to Lagos. So I used to go for holidays. There's friends, there's family, there's everybody in the UK. And so that transition was quite easy for me.
How were your parents with that? With all their kids? You're like, yo, what is going on?
I do think that, parents do miss having their kids at home, just like my parents. But I think what gives them joy is the fact that you're expanding, you're growing, you're getting opportunities, and that it's just the joy of parents to just see their kids do better.
Yeah,
and so,
that's right.
Again, for them, they were able to come to the UK. My parents spent 6 months in the UK, during the summer, and stay with all the kids and grandkids, and then go back during the winter. So the fact that they can also go back and forth, was immensely helpful.
Why journalism? When did you first get into journalism? Were you a young kid who loved to write? Or tell us a little bit about how you got into the field.
Let me tell you the story.
Perfect. We love stories. Go.
This is the media.
Let me tell you the story. So I grew up in a religious home, and my parents, my father in particular, is still a pastor in a church called Deeper Life Bible Church in Nigeria. Mm-hmm. And in Deeper Life Bible Church, one of the doctrines of the church growing up was we didn't used to watch television. And it was simply because the church felt that the television was distracting and just took you away from the Christian race.
Okay.
So if you went to Deeper Life, you just didn't have a television at home. So think about it. A little kid.
You're not seeing the news.
You're not watching cartoons. You're not watching all the movies. And so I had two ways of entertaining myself. Radio. I was listening to radio
so you can
all the time.
Okay.
I'm such a radio girl. And the second was newspapers. My father used to buy 4 newspapers every day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he would bring the newspapers home. And at dinner, it would say, what was the most interesting story you read today? And can you give me a summary of it?
Okay.
And so right from as a little kid, because there was no television, it was just the newspapers and then my books. And at dinner, I would say to my dad, this was the most interesting story in the newspaper today. He said, can you write a summary? I'll write a summary for my dad. And that was just the culture in our home.
Wow.
So growing up with newspapers, we had loads. I was surrounded by newspapers.
Sure.
So I think my brain was programmed right from when I was a kid, around the element of newspaper, storytelling. As a young girl, I knew all the big journalists in my country because I was reading about them. I grew on them. And I remember on my 19th birthday. 19th birthday, I was a second year biochemistry student. So my first degree is in biochemistry. I know.
I
know. And I was
you weren't doing it. You're not thinking about journalism.
You're the lead there, yeah. By the way, I'm also a scientist.
Nuclear physicist.
Come on.
I actually can do atom splitting.
I'll tell you what, my
rest.
thesis was on reversing diabetes.
Shut up.
And albino rat. I know.
You are so frustrating.
So the pathway was do biochemistry and study medicine. Now we're talking about Nigeria, where the three most respected professions in an African home, you become a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, or you know, if you want to go really bougie, you could become a pilot. But those were the pathways. Like you don't tell
pilot
your parents
is up there.
Oh yeah,
really?
I don't know that. That's news to me.
You don't want to tell your parents you want to become a journalist.
Sure.
Anyway,
sure.
Second year in the university, studying biochemistry, doing all this research, and I was talking to my best friend, and she said, "You know, Toyosi, you love to write because I used to write a lot," and she said, "You're going to be 20 soon. I think you should just pursue your passion professionally."
I don't know about that.
I know.
My mom and daddy said no.
I know.
Unless you should have told her you mean pilot.
Yeah, to the Air Force.
Honestly, for me, it was just a side gig. The plan wasn't.
So were you selling stories or writing news in a college paper?
On the side and then be a doctor. And so I walked into the Sun newspapers. The Sun newspapers was and is still Nigeria's biggest tabloid. And think about it. A 19-year-old girl walks into the newsroom. I knew nobody.
Right.
And I walk into the editor's office, and then I said, "Good afternoon, sir. My name is Toyosi Ogunseye, a second-year student at the University of Lagos, studying biochemistry, and I want to write for your newspaper."
Right.
This man looks up at me and says, "Excuse me, what's your degree in media?" I'm like, "No, this is my journal." And so I gave him my journal, my poems, my thoughts. He looked at it and he laughed. He was like, no, I don't want your journal. I don't want your thoughts. He said, "You know what? It was a Tuesday. I remember so well." He said, "I want you to go back to your university and come back on Friday with 2 stories."
Okay.
About anything.
About anything. Just come back.
Okay.
I was just so excited. Now, this man talking to me didn't know I knew him. Mind you, I'd been reading newspapers since I was a kid.
So you did know him?
So I knew who I was talking to, but he didn't know me.
Yeah,
And as he was talking to me, the other editors were coming in. I was looking at them like, this were my heroes.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And went back to campus. Thursday, came back with 4 stories.
Okay, double. Yeah, do it double better.
Double the number. Double the number.
I love that.
So I walked into his office and he said, "Oh, today's Thursday." I said, "Yes, sir. I got the 4 stories ready." And as I was talking to him, the crime editor, Dipo Kende, was coming into his office. I needed 2 more stories for the crime page of the newspaper. So Dipo here. So picture this. I'm talking to the editor. Dipo, the crime editor, comes in and then says, "Oh, editor, I need 2 more stories for the crime page." And then the editor says, "I don't have more stories, but look at this young woman from the University of Lagos. She's just come with 4 stories, and they're crime stories." The crime editor.
Did you? Okay, so how did? Okay,
right.
You chose 4 crime stories.
4 crime stories. How did you choose that? There was so much crime on campus. Okay,
you
know.
Like, at that point, what would he like? Crime stories.
There was so much crime stories. There were cold fights.
I thought you should do some education stories or something.
No. I just no. So the crime editor looks at me, looks at the stories, everything handwritten. Like I didn't have a computer. We're talking about maybe 23 years ago now.
Yeah.
And the editor looks at it and says, "Did you write this yourself?" I said, "Yes." He said, "I love it. I'm going to use it tomorrow. Bring more." The editor goes, "I know, it sounds like a movie."
Right.
He goes back with the 2 stories. Second day, I buy the Sun newspaper, and there is me with my 2 stories with my byline.
With your name on it?
With my name on it.
I thought they would put their name on it.
No way, with my name on it.
Did you know they were going to... I feel like it's one of those situations where, well, thanks for coming in. This is a resume builder.
Sure.
We're going to take them stories.
No, with my name on it. And I started bringing stories every week to the newspaper, and they were using it. And then one day, the editor takes me to the chief editor of the newspaper and says, "This is a young woman who's been bringing all the lovely stories. Let's give her a part-time gig." And then the chief editor says to me, No. Can you come back when you graduate? But I'll keep paying you per story. I'll pay you for every story.
Every story.
She was freelancer.
Yeah,
just freelance.
Sure.
Yes. And then I stepped out, and the editor said to me, Musa, the original editor said to me, "Keep bringing the stories." And then my big break came 2 months after.
Okay.
The university had issued a directive saying that all students were not allowed to go for parties outside the university. Like all partying needs to happen on campus. You cannot party outside the campus.
Okay.
And I remember so well, I was in front of my faculty. I'd seen 4 students take a group picture. Until today, Marky, I don't know why that picture registered in my brain.
Okay.
So 4 random students.
Okay.
They were taking a picture.
It was just taking pictures on campus,
Okay.
And they're taking a picture. It just registered. And that night, these 4 friends went to party outside of campus, got drunk, all died in an accident. News came to campus the following day that 4 students from my faculty had gone to a party, so I heard their names.
But you had seen them.
I'd seen them.
That day you walked by.
Mind you, this was about 23 years ago. There were no selfies and all that.
Sure.
So it was the campus photographer.
Oh
my God.
Campus photographer. So I went to the campus photographer. I got the picture.
My Lord.
Ran straight to
the paper.
To the paper, which was like 2-3 hours from campus. I'm not taking anywhere nearby.
I don't know why I thought it was close.
No,
I just assumed it was close.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't. And said to them, I have a story for you. And wrote the story, gave them the picture, and the following day, picture this, the biggest newspaper, the biggest tabloid in Nigeria, The Sun. And on the front page, the title of the story was Disco to Grave. Toyosi Ogunseye front page. It was flying off the shelves.
Wow.
And I became a national name in my country.
Overnight.
The vice chancellor of the university heard that I was a student in the university that
wrote the paper.
Wrote the story. People were calling my parents saying, is that the same Toyosi? Is that your daughter? On the front page, my father was like, Toyosi, a journalist? No,
she's a biochemist.
She's a biochemist in school.
She don't know how to write. She do
the
fusion.
chief editor called me that day. My phone rang. I still remember and says, my name is Femi Adesina, the chief editor of the Sun newspapers. You've earned your job as a full-time journalist with us. Come work. And so I became a journalist.
Before you graduated, like he had said originally, though.
Yes. And that's how my career started.
That, first of all, and I don't want to do this disservice by an ad break. That's an insane story, by the way. If you are just tapping in, this is Envision Radio from the United Way of Greater Charlottesville and City of Promise, News Radio 98.9, 1070 AM WINA. Price and Markey here with journalist, chemist, president of the presidential precinct. Oh, I mean, what else? What did I leave off?
Nothing.
Can you also juggle?
Award winner.
Toyosi Ogunseye here. So that, first of all, it's a crazy story. And it's so interesting too, because like it feels both like very modern and also like a lifetime ago, where like you like walked into a newsroom.
Yes.
If you said those words to anybody like under the age of 30, they're like, what?
I didn't want to say it.
None of those words make any sense.
They don't make any sense.
Right.
You can't just walk. Parents say it all the time.
Right.
You can't just walk in with your resume and sit down.
Right.
Tell me, next person who got a free spot, let me in. That's how it works.
I mean, it is so interesting. And I mean, was that, just as you reflect on kind of like younger you, do you look at that as sort of like, is that who you are? Is that like the hubris of youth of just like, I was 19, I don't really have a lot to lose, I'm just going to go do my thing? Or do you find yourself as kind of like, no, I've always kind of been like, I'm just going to find whatever the answer is?
It's who I am. I strongly believe in advocating for myself. I suppose that when you come from a country of over 200 million people, you just got to speak for yourself. You know, there's nobody, and mind you, I come from a country where we don't have the social welfare that most countries have. It's every man for himself and everyone just trying to find a way to become successful. But beyond that, I think it's just who I am. I'm the first child.
No, you're the oldest.
Right? I'm the oldest.
That's something the oldest would do.
I think so. So I often say I have the firstborn syndrome.
Sure.
And that is just the ability to just say what I want to do and just walk in. And I strongly believe that what's the worst that would happen? It's a no. But then if I don't try, how would I know? So it's who I am. To answer your question, Price, I just believe that. And it's very interesting because I'm also extremely introverted, you know. So, but at the same time, I just believe that if I believe strongly in something, I should just knock on a door. And it's still what carries me through on my job right now as the president of the Prince and Prize, where I'm not afraid to open a door and knock. It's my conviction. It's what I believe in. And if I don't advocate for what I believe in, who's going to do that for me?
How has your largely incredibly diverse sort of worldviews. How does that influence your work, right? Because I feel like, we have these conversations all the time.
Yes.
And thinking about we all have perspectives and are sort of looking at things from particular, but you have an incredibly broad worldview, and also from being a journalist, I'm sure that's sort of like the things you have lived versus the things you have sort of talked about or learned about or been sort of interested in.
Yeah.
How does that filter into the work that you do now?
I think the first thing is understanding that humans are the same almost everywhere. We often want the same things, and that is to live a good life in a safe environment, to be able to put food on the tables of our families, ensure our kids have great education. Fathers want to go out in the morning and be able to provide for their families. Mothers want to feel safe. Children want to have a great childhood. People are looking for opportunities. People want good health care. Like, the basic rights are the same everywhere. People also want to be in community with like-minded people like themselves. People want to just do better for themselves. So, having lived in Nigeria, different parts of the African continent, in DRC Congo, in Senegal, I've lived in Berlin, moved to London, moved here. Human beings are very similar. And so having that understanding really helps me in my decision making. It also helps me not take things too personal, because in my last role, I used to manage, my team was over 800 people. And in my current role, my team is 8 people.
Right.
And I'll tell you what, it's not any different.
No.
She said it's the same 8 to 800 people ratio.
It's not any different, because at the end of the day, what the 800 people want is exactly what the 8 people want. So I do think that having that exposure has made me also more inclusive in my thinking. It helps me think about what other people are not thinking about. When people talk, I can understand perspectives better. And it just makes me more open to different views, because I often say that one of the advantages of doing this job that I do is that I'm not fully American. And so I get all perspectives when people are talking, and I'm also able to relate to people. I'm able to, when people talk to me about their struggles, whether you're from Southeast Asia, Latin America, the United States, from Europe, because I've lived on this continent, I'm able to really relate with people. So it's been helpful.
You've been at the precinct, you said, about 3 years. Talk
About
a little
3
bit about
years.
that transition from the BBC.
Oh.
And what was the first thing you did when you got back to Charlottesville? You had been here in 14 years, right?
I went to Borders.
No! Yes, go!
Universal truth. Universal truth.
That is my spot.
That's my sponsor.
I might leave here and go. Oh, no. I just want to go.
We gotta go to a different breakfast.
We got somewhere to go. But if I wasn't, I thought about coming and getting Bodos on the way up here. And the only way I did is I got breakfast after that.
love Borders. I know. There's just something
It is
about
universal.
I know. It is.
We were talking about that last week, weren't we? Or 2 weeks
They
ago,
was
something
eating
like that.
Bodos bagels when they was singing "We Are the World," Michael Jackson and them. They had to be bringing all those people together.
So, I'd come here about 13 years ago. 13 years ago, I was the editor of the newspaper. So
Okay.
here was I was editing the newspaper, and it was such a tough time for me, because the newspaper hadn't had a young woman in that position, and I was facing some opposition in the newsroom.
Okay.
It was a big newsroom, very masculine, and even though the process of me becoming editor was transparent, and the whole hiring process was public,
Right.
there's still a lot of bad blood and bad feelings.
Sure.
And here was I, this young woman, sat in this big newsroom, editing this newspaper every day. And, when it comes to editing a newspaper, it is the old newsroom, it is marketing, it is digital. Of course, you have people, heads of different departments, but it's like leading, a newsroom of generals. And here was I wasn't in any doubt that I could do the job, but the opposition was just too much. And I remember, as the editor of the newspaper, one of the things you'd have to do as an editor is you have to be across everything that's happening in the world. Facebook was the big social media platform. Then there was the Instagram and Snapchat and all that. And you'd follow all accounts. And I used to follow the White House, the European Union. You just got to see what's happening in the world every day. Right. And I remember President Barack Obama came on Facebook. It was the White House Facebook page. And it said, "Hi, everyone. My name is President Barack Obama. And I'm delighted to announce a new fellowship for young African leaders. It's the Young African Leaders Initiative or Leadership Initiative. If you're a young leader between 25 and 35, I want to meet you. I want to give you an opportunity to come to the United States for 7 weeks on this leadership program. And I looked at it and I said, oh, let me see what this fellowship is about. There was a link, attached to the announcement from President Obama. And I clicked on it and I applied. And that fellowship brought me to the United States at the presidential precinct. I needed that time away from my job because there was just so much going on. And I needed to just reflect and spend time outside of that environment. And then I came here to the presidential precinct. So the presidential precinct is, think about a leadership incubator that finds the leaders doing the best things in the world, trying to make a change, and they bring them together in community. The presidential precinct at that time was one of the institutions that had been selected by the State Department to deliver the Young African Leaders Initiative. So when you were picked as an international leader, they'll send you to institutions like the presidential precinct for that fellowship. And that brought me here to Charlottesville for the first time. And I sat in class with 24 other young African leaders like myself, complete strangers, never met them before.
Did you didn't know any of them?
No. That's the beauty of these fellowships, complete strangers. And all of them absolute rock stars facing similar challenges. And after 7 weeks, I got clarity. I felt more motivated. I had a community. And I went back to my country. I was like, you know what? I'll take it on. Do whatever. And went back, blossomed on the job, had all my friends, in Charlottesville, the African leaders to just cheer me on. We're all supporting one another. Now, that was 13 years ago. At the point when I wanted to leave journalism, because I'd given it everything for over 20 years, I was drained. And I got this job and came back here. What made me come back was your question, Price, was I remembered myself 13, 14 years ago and the difference the presidential precinct made to my career and to my trajectory. And I said to myself, I want to do the same for young people like myself. And that's what I'm going to do here. And that's what we've done since I got here.
If you guys are just joining us in Vision Radio from the United Way of Greater Charlottesville and City of Promise, News Radio 98.9, 1070 AM WINA, Price Markey, here with good friend, president, editor, journalist, superstar Toyosi Ogunseye. So, how did you get reconnected? Right. So you're a program participant. You go back to the wide world of journalism, and you're doing your thing.
Yeah.
How do you pop back up on the radar? Okay.
I stayed in touch. I'm an alum. I stayed in touch and would have alum activities online. And the presidential precinct about 6 years ago formed the Global Advisory Council. I became the chair of the Global Advisory Council. So I was in touch with the organization.
It wasn't like you hadn't heard from him in 14 years,
and there was so much going on. And that's the beautiful thing about the printing, that all the leaders will come to us. It's like a revolving door. You just don't come and we let you go. There's constant mentoring, or you're either mentoring other people. So that communication was there. So it wasn't like I just disappeared.
Right. That's right.
I was right on the radar.
Yeah.
Did you keep up with any of the people that you were in the
Till
class with?
today, we have a WhatsApp group. Till today. And that's the fun thing. Every year we're bringing an average of 200 international leaders into Charlottesville via different programs. And everybody keeps in touch with everybody. I know.
What did they say when they heard you were coming back after all this time to run the precinct?
So here's the thing. People didn't believe I was going to leave London to come to Charlottesville.
Right.
Because people in Charlottesville want to go to London.
Right. I'm about to say, I get it.
Correct. That is
so
fair.
The question was, why do you want to leave a big, it's like you want to leave a big, is it called a big pond?
Big pond.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But there's no boatos in London as far as I know.
Yes, but there's no boatos in London.
That's the one thing.
As far as I know. My two trips to London, I've not found a boato. So.
Don't let them know about it.
So I think for most people it was like, should leave London.
Sure.
Should leave such a big job, managing all those people and come to a small town with 8 people. I said, yes, I want to do it.
Yeah, we'll talk about that because I mean, that's a fair take, right? And you have this career of winning journalism, what is African Journalist of the Year and ICFJ night, like it wasn't like you were sort of middling around and like, well, maybe I'll right?
No.
What that feels like you're underselling kind of the tectonic nature of that shift. So I get it. You were burnt out. That makes sense. But it seems like you were also in a place where you'd be like, I'm gonna take a sabbatical and then I'll be back. And anyone would have hired you.
Yes.
Right. So
indeed.
Yes, it did. Exactly how I would have said it. I was going to say it.
Fair enough. So what? I mean, what was the thought process that went into what it seems like? I guess it's easy to tell the story now because, of course, it worked.
Yes.
Like it worked, right?
Yes.
You found your place here. You're doing a really good job, right? So it makes sense. But like, it seems like there was an equal chance you come here and you go, oh, whoops! Like being here as a participant and exploring the United States and exploring this theoretically as someone who is really intellectually engaged is different than living here. Right? And so, how, as you're going through that, did you ever have that sort of nagging feeling that, like, well, maybe not?
That's a really good question, Price. I do think that, and I'm going to wax philosophical here.
Yes, wax away.
I do think that in my spirit, I knew it was time to move on. I strongly believe we all have an inner compass. And if we listen to that inner compass, it does tell us when it's time to move, when it's time to stay. Of course, I didn't have any guarantee that I'd love it here in Charlottesville. But I was strongly convinced that this was the right move to make. And how did I know? It was just because everything was seamless. I often say that sometimes when something is too difficult, maybe it's a sign that it's not meant for you sometimes. But the whole transition of even trying to get my visa into this country and how everything worked out, it was like a movie. Everything was just aligned. There was no disconnection in any way. And I suppose the biggest thing for me was I didn't know anyone here. Last time I was here was 13 years ago. Of course, I'd come back for the interview with the board of the organization, but I didn't have anyone here. It was just me by myself. And I'd shipped, cargoed a few things from the UK here. And I just believed it would work. Bear this in mind that even though I didn't know anybody here, I strongly believed in the mission of the presidential printing. And I told myself, if it didn't work, I could go back to the UK. It wasn't like I was stranded or anything.
Interesting.
I could go back to the UK. But I also didn't come with intention to leave. I came with the intention to stay. And what has made my stay here really successful is just the community here. I found people really welcoming, very warm. And I've just felt really grounded. There's just something about Charlottesville that warms my soul.
I love that. I've never heard anybody say that on here.
That's because everybody comes here from like Madison County.
They're like,
it's like
this was a big town to me.
I struggled. I struggled from a big city to a small city.
Yeah.
Because I was used to the fast pace of things.
Was that the biggest adjustment? Was
it
just
was
like
the
the tempo?
adjustment. For
and
example, I remember going to the cobbler and I took my shoes and I said, when am I going to get it? And he said, in 2 weeks. I was like, 2 weeks? Why not tomorrow?
Yeah.
Sure. And he was so shocked. I was like, why not tomorrow?
Work through the night.
Because I'm from an environment where you get things the next day.
Yeah.
When Charlottesville, you got to wait. So, but it's really been helpful. It's helped me slow down.
Yes.
And I really underestimated the toll of being a journalist for over 20 years. And for me, it's also been recovery period and just coming back to myself.
Yeah. How have you adjusted to that? I often say that all of our jobs are important, and I believe that, and I think we all sort of internalize that. But it's also, I think it's interesting to think about like the urgency with which some jobs happen. News happens all the time. Medicine happens all the time, right? Like
every second,
right? And so, did you find yourself? How did you adjust to that, particularly as a leader? Were you early, just like go and people are like, "Yo, time out!" Like,
yes,
it's cool. We can do that tomorrow, and you're like, "No, this has to go out today, right now, yesterday."
Absolutely, and I think for my team when I came in, they're used to me now.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
But when I first came in, it was a shock for them, and thankfully they gave me the feedback.
Yeah,
and I said to them, when I'm moving too quick, just stop me. And they come to me and they're like, Toyosi, you know what? That's too quick. You need to cut it. Because I'll come in and I'm like, we're gonna do this by tomorrow. Because I'm used to the deadlines every second.
Yeah.
I'm moving very quickly.
Sure.
And the was I came into a nonprofit that just didn't have that culture.
That's right.
And they'd look at me like, where do you think you are?
Yeah.
You want to get things done in the next 5 minutes? And I was always go. But it's been a great balance for my team because their capacity to move very quickly has also increased.
Sure. Yeah, you meet each other in the middle.
Yeah.
So we've met each other in the middle. Yeah, but it was a struggle for me. I just couldn't understand why things just couldn't be done now.
Yeah. I've met some people who have come in from like the tech world. And they'll be like, can we have a meeting on this? And they're like, yeah, what about next week? And they're like, oh, I was thinking like this afternoon. I'm like, oh, that's not how this business works.
Absolutely.
We're really
That used
it's a slow
that used to
business.
frustrate me.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, oh, I'll look at the calendar. Maybe in 2 weeks time. I'm
No,
like,
yeah, that's how we.
in
That's
2
exactly.
weeks'
I just
time?
told somebody that the other day. What about 2 weeks?
I'm like, no.
I'm on my way to your office now. I thought we were doing this right now.
So that was the biggest change.
Are there any moments, in your time as president that stand out to you and make the work show how important the work is?
Oh yes, Marquet. Oh yes. I often say to people that I wish I could. So we have all kinds of leadership programs. As I said, what we do is we look for young people, emerging leaders making a change or trying to find.
Do you go out and find those people, or do they apply?
They apply.
Okay.
So what we do is we have all kinds of leadership programs across different sectors. As I speak with you, I have 23 international leaders from 20 countries on the Global Democracy Fellowship in town right now on a 7-week program. And how we find them, people who are looking for opportunities that we present know where to find us. We use social media a lot. We use our communities. We use our partners, UVA, William and Mary, Montpelier, Monticello, Ashland Highland. We use embassies because we've done this job or work for over a decade. People know us in that industry of, we find talent and we develop them, and we bring complete strangers together, create community for them, give them the tools and resources to be better leaders for their people. The most rewarding part of my job is bringing people who've never met each other before, come together and become the biggest influencers over one another. And our programming can compete with any program at Harvard, Stanford, Columbia. And that's my bread and butter. But that's not the best part of what I do. The best part of what I do is same people come to us, leave as different people with better version of themselves. Sometimes I was telling, some of the fellows in the Global Democracy Fellowship that I wish I could take a picture, freeze their faces on the first day of the program and then also freeze it on the last day of the program. Two different people. Most of them come here, just like myself 13 years ago. They come here exhausted. The leadership responsibilities they have in their countries on their shoulders. I'm talking about Supreme Court judges on our Judicial Fellowship Program, complete strangers coming together for the first time and discussing the rule of law over 2 weeks. And these are people who are, some of them facing immense political persecutions in their countries. Some of them, trying to build schools and provide water for their local communities. Absolute rockstars, but also under immense pressure. And they come here, and what we tell them is, can you put the pressure on the table and can we discuss your pressure? And more importantly, how can we help you? Who can we connect you with? And it's that creation of that fellowship, the intersection of community, purpose, bringing people together, that gives me the best joy. Just being able to give back what I was given about 13 years ago to all kinds of leaders coming in through a revolving door is the best part of my job.
Do you tell people that you were used to be in the program? What do they think about that?
That's my biggest bragging right.
Really?
I used to be sitting where you were sitting.
Yeah, that's what I tell them on the first day. I'm like, I used to be sat there.
Yeah.
Just to break the ice.
Yeah.
But I think they really appreciate the fact that I've been on the program.
Yeah.
And then I understand,
what they're going through.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Talk a little bit about, we've talked about a lot of this, and I've been sort of around the edges of some of the things and met some of the people. It really is incredible. And I remember we talked about this last time, we saw each other about how complicated is it given sort of the current zeitgeist, right? And I'm sure that makes it harder, but how do you think about sort of making sure that you can continue to maintain the fidelity of your programs in an environment that is not always, sort of terribly gracious to what you're trying to do? And I think about the things that, I think the last time we saw each other was in this global democracy thing. Okay.
Yes.
What does that even mean in sort of the current context? And how do you fit what you're doing sort of inside and also outside of here's what we do as Americans, right? We just have a very narrow view of the world, right? We think that the things that are happening here are just the things that are happening everywhere. I think what's been really cool about getting to know you is that, like, it's a big wide world, right? So how do you mix and match the, like, hey, you are coming here to UVA and to learn about sort of, the birth of this particular democracy.
Yes.
But also, it seems like that conversation might have changed in the last 20 years.
It has.
Right around what it is, what it could be, how much do we want to learn from it, how much do we want to use it as sort of a foil of maybe what we're not trying to take back. How have you sort of changed your view of how these programs work as the politics of the time shift and change?
Okay, so the first thing I would say is when I came here about 3 years ago, the precinct used to run quite a number of State Department programs, the Young African Leaders Program, the International Visitors Leadership Program. We ran quite a few of them. And at that point, the funding of the precinct was about over 40% from the State Department. As I speak with you this morning, it's less than 0.1%.
Yeah, I think last time we talked, you told me you're like, I want to get to zero.
Yes, 0.1%. And you'd ask, have we survived? It's because, number one, partnerships. Number two, it's the goodwill of people who believe in our mission. It's mostly private individual donations and corporate donations keeping the precinct thriving. It is people who believe in the greater good and finding better leaders for a better world will come together and say, this dream must not die, we'll continue to support you. And really thankful for that, because when I came here, I'd said to my board, give me permission to find corporate funding. Give me permission to expand beyond the government. And thankfully we did that, and that's why we're here today. But to your question on existing in this changing landscape, the one of the good things we do is, in our fellowships, whether it's the Global Democracy Fellowship, the Corporate Leaders Program, the International Visitors Leadership Program, the Judicial Fellowship Program, we don't say, and I don't say that we're teaching people democracy. No. What we say to them is what works for you in your country and how can we support you to make it better? And what can we learn from you? And I think it's that humility of understanding that the United States doesn't have all the answers. And the things we may want to learn from other people, of course, things they want to learn from us, that's really helpful. So we don't come from the perspective of we want to teach you. No, we come from the perspective of what works for you. How can we support you? And what the people we can also support you with. I'd want to add another layer to that conversation, Price. And it is the fact that, for the United States, when people look at this country from the outside, bear in mind that the people and the leaders coming on our fellowships are coming from countries that have really suffered institutional breakdown of democracy, rule of law. These are countries that are very fragile. And compared to these countries, they still see the United States as way better than where they're coming from. It's very easy as an American citizen to be extremely critical of this country, and deservedly so.
Sure.
However, it's a very different perspective for people coming from outside. Some of them coming from countries where there's been military rule for over 50 years. Some of them coming from countries where there's been no election. Some of them coming from autocracies that are even worse than the United States. And the most distinguishing fact here is, at least in the United States, there's structures and systems to keep things in check. And there's going to be another election. The people have the power to make a change if they want it to be. A lot of the leaders who come on our programs don't have that luxury. They're not coming from systems where votes are heard. They're not coming from systems where they can make a change if necessary. They don't have functional systems. So yes, while Americans would say we're going through a very peculiar time in our history, and it is indeed so, but a very different perspective from people coming outside who are just so grateful to have this opportunity to come learn in this country. They understand that no country is perfect. They're coming from extremely broken systems where America looks like heaven compared to their countries. And so it's a very different perspective. And it's not like they don't say to us, here you are hosting all these leadership programs. Yeah, you are, talking about democracy. You're here talking about the rule of law, the role of our founding fathers, and what is happening in your country.
Sure.
And we say to them, That's why you're here. Help us interpret from your perspective what we should be doing better. But just to say that the view of the American compared to international is very different. We have a chance in this country. We have systems that work. We have elections that count. It's very different in other parts of the world.
Do you think the presidential precinct being in Charlottesville gives it a unique perspective? Like, is it important? Could you do this program in
Anywhere.
D.C.? Or could you do this program in Florida? Could you do it in California? Or is there something about Charlottesville specifically that lends to the leadership growth of these individual leaders?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And that's just because even when you look at the nomenclature of the precinct, it's a consortium of UVA, William and Mary, Montpelier, Monticello, and Island. And it's just looking at our founding fathers, looking at the leadership that's made Charlottesville what it is. I think what's really unique here about Charlottesville is just the amount of leadership potential we have across all sectors, whether it's the nonprofit sector, whether it's a university. And so we do have this ecosystem of, it's a small town, but it's a town that punches way above its weight because of all the resources we have here. And so to your question as to what makes Charlottesville very unique, I cannot think of another American town that has 3 presidential sites, that has, one big university, another nearby one, and it's just pulling all the strengths together. It's pulling all our leaders together and saying that Charlottesville has become a melting point for all these international conversations. We have all the Supreme Court judges from Ukraine coming in. We have all these leaders from Madagascar, from Peru, from Brazil, from Mexico, and they converge in our city. And they talk about how can we become better leaders by understanding what has made Charlottesville what it is today. So I think it's the uniqueness of Charlottesville that makes this program and the presidential precinct stand out.
What are you looking at me like that for?
I thought you...
What's next? Right? And I know you've worked, really hard to do something that I think is more difficult than people give it credit for, which is preserve the legacy of an organization that has built a reputation and then put your own flavor in it. And the third leg of that stool is always like, it has to be sustainable.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And it feels like now that you have done that, or it seems like your vision is fully in play and your direction is fully in play. And so if we assume and hope that you'll be around for a little while, what does the next couple of years look like? What are you building towards and what are you working on that you're excited about?
So I'll break it into short-term plan and long-term plan. And I'll talk about the long-term plan first. Long-term plan is that when people are thinking about where to become a better leader, the precinct is top 3 in the world.
Wow.
That's long-term plan. And short-term plan is, number 1, keep the sanctity, the integrity, and the validity of our programs and double the impact. At the moment, we bring in about over 200 international leaders across a year. A year across different programs. My dream would be to double that number. And that would involve, finding funding and expanding the current programs we have. So I would say is deepening our impact also in Charlottesville, working better with local nonprofits and organizations who believe in our vision and mission, expanding our current programs, impacting and doubling what we do. But long-term plan is when you think about where do I go to become a better leader, we're top 3 in the world.
I'm with it.
I'm with it too. I love a long-term goal like that. We're going to be the best. That's the goal.
But you got to break it down.
Yeah. How do people get involved and what are ways that people can be involved, right? I think there's always this kind of time, talent, treasure thing, but I think some of this, it's probably a fair argument to say this feels immense and it feels enormous and it feels like you have to have a certain skill or something to get involved. And I don't think that's true, but I'd love for you to just give a little bit of if you're just a person who hears this and goes, wow, that sounds awesome. I'm not a judge. I'm not, I'm not
you're just in Charlottesville.
Right. You know what I'm saying? I'm not leading a revolution in Kenya. How do I fit into this? What would you tell that person?
Thank you so much, Price. I think the first thing is we're always looking for people who can open Charlottesville to all these international visitors. So the first thing is just even being part of our welcome committee, welcoming these international visitors into your homes, taking them to lunch, showing them around. So the best way to get involved is just volunteering with us as a member of a welcome committee. doing home hospitality. We do that a lot because a lot of these fellows, some of them are in America for the first time. And what we really want to do beyond the academic part of what we do is really get them to enjoy Charlottesville and really understand the United States of America beyond what they see on TV.
Sure.
And there's no better way to do that than to get them just to be in people's homes. So again, people can sign up and on our website as a volunteer. It's thepresidentialprecinct.org. We can be found on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram. We're always looking for people who can host our fellows, come to our events, meet all these wonderful people. But being part of our welcoming committee and just volunteering, welcoming them is one of the things we look for. And we just need people to do that. Thank you.
I have one more question for you because it is a World Cup time and there are, brings a lot of international folks to the United States. There's two questions. One short version of who are you rooting for insofar as your Super Eagles are not involved. But the second version is, do you have a favorite quick story of one of the fellows' first time in the States? Because what a lot of the World Cup stories now are like people whose first time in America.
Yes.
And they're like, oh my goodness,
Yes.
like some of this stuff is real, right?
Yes.
Like your gas stations, you can also buy shirts and weapons and some of this stuff is true. Do you have like a quick one that you remember that like just something that really either hit you or hit someone hilariously? They're like, oh, like holy crap, Walmart is like a real thing.
So back to what am I rooting for? I'll take Ghana.
Sure. Excellent choice.
I'm rooting for Ghana.
Very good.
And a funny World Cup story. So we do have all the fellows right now on ground and they all have the different teams. This group in particular, many of them have been to the United States before.
Okay.
But I'm going to tell you a very interesting story that happened 2 months ago.
Yes.
We had the Corporate Leaders Program on ground, and that's a program for entrepreneurs. And as part of the program we put for them, we ensure that they're meeting local entrepreneurs here. And they'd gone to meet Troy Robinson, a local entrepreneur in town. Yeah. And Troy had met them and I told them his story. Around the time they were here, the Tum Tum Festival was happening and the CIC was doing a pitch competition. Sure. And Troy was
the winner.
He won, didn't he?
Because the corporate leaders all came and voted for him. So what happened was that was it. And that was it.
Absolutely.
So Troy told them there was going to be competition. All the corporate leaders flooded the pitch
That's amazing.
and we're all buying coins and everyone was voting for Troy.
That's so
and
good.
the room just couldn't understand why Troy was getting all those votes. Well, it was the corporate leaders, but most importantly, it was this international business leaders with a local entrepreneur encouraging him.
Sure.
And they're saying, Troy, let's look at your business plan. You haven't thought about this. You need to do this. You need to talk to this person. And for me, that was the joy, one of the joys of that program. Yes, those business leaders were darting. Yes, they were meeting bigger entrepreneurs in town. But to see the amount of support Troy was getting from complete strangers.
That's excellent.
Who invaded the pitch fest and were buying all the coins to get Troy to win and giving Troy business advice. I was like, this is it.
That's giving back to the community. I love that part of the work.
Absolutely.
That's so funny.
Absolutely.
Thank you for hanging out with us.
Thank you.
That was fantastic.
Thank you.
That what?
That was fantastic.
Thank you.
Well, now I feel a little self-conscious because I forgot the award-winning journalist part. So now I'm over here like, man, I got to ask some different questions.
Thank you.
Listen, if you guys have ideas for the show or want to get in touch with us, you can find us on social media on all platforms at United Way Seaville, at City of Promise. The inbox is open, envision at UnitedWaySeaville.org. Again, to find Toyosi and her work, that is presidentialprecinct.org. Do you still do people still ask you about your writing? Is that a thing
all the time?
Do you do you want people to read it? Do you want how do people find some stuff that
you can Google it?
You can Google me.
I come with the top response on Google.
You can Google me. This is preposterous. Hold on. We're going to do this live. Okay, cool. Yes. Oh, good. Okay, you have a full Wikipedia. Excellent.
Oh, you're Wikipedia.
This is great. Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, make my job easier. Just Google her.
Just Google her.
And you'll find what you're looking for. We get support on the show from folks like you. If you like what you hear, share with your friends, your colleagues, or if you can find us on your favorite podcast platform. Best way to support, consider making a donation, time, talent, treasure to our great nonprofits. That's City of Promise, United Way Greater Charlottesville, Presidential Precinct, all our local groups. It's how we continue doing our community-based work and this show. For Toyosi and Marky, this is Price. We'll see you next week.
Thank you. See ya.